We've got a special show for you today. Of course, this is Brothers Talking NBA Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Ernest Dancy, and this is my special guest. We go way back to the college days. I'm talking early 2000s, before 2005, 2004, early 2000s, real
Mhm.
early 2000s, right? William Martin. His platform, 300 pounds of sports knowledge, is phenomenal and has been phenomenal consistently for a long time. Well,
Listen, it is a pleasure. It's one of those I'll tell a side story real quick. I was prepping my notes today and my wife said, "Do you want to call him and talk to him prior to this?" And I was like, "Babe, I haven't talked to Earn in about 20 years, give or take, okay? But it's one of those where you know what? You know how somebody's vibe is. And it's just like, it's certain things you don't forget. So it's just like, you know what? Let's just press record and make the magic. That's it.
yep, and we're going to be just fine. We're going to pick up right where we left off at the weight room.
Exactly.
No, perfect. I couldn't agree more, Will.
Hmm.
So I think that this current NBA season has had the most parity of any NBA season I've seen in a long time. Uh Most people's favorite, I guess, is the Nuggets, and
Hmm.
rightfully so, they're the defending champs.
Hmm.
And they've proven that even with the losses of Bruce Brown and Jeff Green, they still have what it takes to defend. It seems like Michael Porter Jr. has gotten better. He actually looks healthy in all actuality. That's what it looks like. He's always been very good. He was a lottery pick and probably would have been the number one pick if he didn't have that back injury and have to have that back surgery. So he's in all actuality doing what he was meant to do. Aaron Gordon, when he was rotting away with the Orlando Magic, I feel like I personally always knew he was not a superstar, but he was a piece that if he was put on a good team, he could be a superstar in his role. And I think those two guys, along with Jamal Murray, also being back to form considerably, he's going to pick it up in the playoffs like he always does. I think that makes up for the losses of Jeff Green and Bruce Brown.
Listen, absolutely, because you look at it with the Nuggets. I don't, I mean, there's always going to be haters out there, people who disagree. And I remember, some of these cats, you know, who are nationally known that tried to diminish Nikola Jokic's first MVP award. And then once he got that second MVP award, I said, listen, this guy's a Hall of Famer because if you look at the stats, there has never been a player in NBA history win multiple MVP awards and not make the Hall of Fame. The only guys who have not made the Hall of Fame who have multiple MVP awards are the guys who are still playing, like Giannis and LeBron and Steph Curry. So you look at Jokic, and he makes it so easy for the guys around him because honestly, to me, looking at Nikola Jokic, we're seeing what Arvydas Sabonis should have been in the NBA. Because remember, we got Sabonis when after he had two bad knees when he finally decided to come to Portland.
Yeah, it was at the
So
end of his career. It was
right,
essentially
right,
for
right.
the career. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, I've never seen a big man from his position be able to pass, from so many different aspects. And it makes life easier for a guy like Aaron Gordon because Aaron Gordon is like tailor made to play off of him. Jamal Murray's out right now, but you figure Jamal Murray's going to be back for the playoffs.
Yep.
And we have seen, and I think the bubble tournament, the bubble playoffs a couple of years ago really showed what Jamal Murray could do on the big stage. And then, of course, last year in the finals. For me, with the Nuggets, I think they're hungry because they want to run it back because they know this is probably going to be it just due to that extra apron
Mm-hmm.
with the salary cap. And the reason why I bring it up, everybody's under contract with the exception of KCP. And, KCP, he's probably going to want his money and he deserves it.
And
Okay.
that's the extremely important part that he's an
Ex-
extremely extremely important piece.
Just ask the Lakers
Yeah.
because he was on that Laker team when they won a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So you look at that, you got KCP, you got Michael Porter, who I was suspicious about at first. I saw him playing in college at Missouri, but the fact that the Clippers had two picks and Jerry West passed on him twice was like that was very telling for me because Jerry West, this guy knows talent, but he passed on
Mhm.
him twice. But somehow, to the Nuggets' credit, they have gotten it to work. And I look at KCP, he gives them that perimeter defender. You got Jamal Murray, you got Aaron Gordon, and then of course you got the big fella in Nikola Jokic, and he's a guy. There's nothing flashy about Nikola Jokic's game,
Oh,
but you know what? To me, it's one of those where you could sit back and say about a superstar, you know what? We need to limit him under 20 points. Jokic can score 17 points and they'll still win. Why? Because he'll have 13 or 14 rebounds. He'll have 14 or 15 assists. And
yep.
it's those assists are the ones that are so painful because he'll be in the post and then he'll just go behind his back. He'll go over his shoulder. He'll kick it back out.
True.
And you know what? Listen, they keep it flowing. So the Nuggets, they listen, they are poised. I really do believe they are poised to have a legit shot to go out there and try to run it back.
They do. They do. I agree. And I must admit, I did not think Jokic was going to become what it is that he's become, like at all. I did not see that at all. It looked like a slow, out of shape, unathletic big. That's all he looked like to me, who was awkward.
But
Then who did they trade away? They traded away the big man who used to be on Portland, and now he's the big man for Phoenix.
Yusuf
Nurkic.
Nurkic.
When they traded Nurkic away, because Nurkic was on Denver, right?
Hmm.
When they traded Nurkic away, and then Nikola was the only big man that they had, and it was like, all right, we're putting all of our stock into you. He blossomed. You have a point guard who's essentially a combo guard in the vein of a Kyrie. Not quite um not quite the level that Kyrie is, of course, but that mold. He can get it off the dribble. He can get it catch and shoot. He's actually better moving around without the ball and getting it off the catch and shoot and making a quick decision, right? And like
Hmm.
you said, when you have arguably the greatest passing big man that we've ever seen, Jamal Murray becomes even more of a deadly weapon, sort of like how Kyrie becomes when he's next to a LeBron. And I don't know how people are surprised about this. Now that he's next to Luka, he's doing the same thing. It's like this is the same Kyrie as the ultimate weapon. He's not a leader, okay? He's not a prototypical point guard. He is a nuclear weapon. And that's what Murray becomes next to Nikola, in my opinion. So yeah, they're unbelievable team, and they've taken on the personality of their fiery coach, Mike Malone. And I liked him ever since he was with Sacramento and he had Boogie. And then they fired Mike Malone when Boogie was actually sick. And they fired him, and Boogie couldn't believe it. I like Mike Malone even since then.
Well, listen, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with anything you said right there because Mike Malone, he's been around basketball since he was knee high to a street curb. I mean, you figure his dad, Brendan, was an assistant coach for so many years, coached with the Raptors. And Mike Malone's a New York City guy, and those New York City guys typically, especially basketball guys, they have an additional chip on their shoulders. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? I mean, honestly, it's the New York area guys, whether it's New York, New Jersey, whatever. I mean, just look at you like men's basketball right now with what UConn is doing with Dan Hurley. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think players typically tend to embody the mentality of their head coach. And yeah, Michael Malone could be brash at times. Yeah, he can be tough. But you know what? He goes out there and makes sure that his team backs it up, and his team knows how to go out there and get it done. When the chips are pushed to the middle of the table. I think this championship run for the Nuggets, in all actuality, started back in 2020 in the bubble. Because if you remember that Western Conference Final Series against the Lakers, they started off slow, but once Jokic figured out AD, he started
Mm-hmm.
he started to come on towards the end of that series. but they just ran out of time because they
Yep.
spotted the Lakers that lead. Okay, but since then, you figure the year after that, they got to the playoffs. Injuries to both Porter and Murray, and then Murray didn't play the entire following year. But now they've gotten everybody back, and you know what? They're raring to go. And to me, starting five wise, they are the most complete starting five in the NBA, in my opinion. And getting back to what you had said about Jokic a little while ago, this guy was a second round pick. And it's one of those where this is a classic example of what happens when you scout talent. Okay,
Mhm.
you have good talent evaluators, and more importantly, you develop talent. Because too often we see it in the NBA draft where guys are focused, well, we need the number one pick. Okay, the number one pick is fine, but are you going to go out there and find the right guy to fit your system? Are you going to go out there and develop that guy? Too often, some of these teams they get caught up in, well, this guy's the best player available, but it doesn't make sense to go out there and draft a point guard if you already have a point guard on your team. So and I think too many teams get caught up in that hype. But in regards to the Nuggets, I think they found the right guy in Jokic. They were patient with him. They developed him because if you look at his first 5 years in the league, his numbers continue to get better offensively.
Mhm.
And then they have done their part to put the right players around them. Remember, a lot of teams passed on Michael Porter Jr. A
A
lot
lot.
of teams passed on Jamal Murray. And honestly, when I see the Nuggets, I think about the Warriors. And the reason is how many teams passed on Steph Curry in round number one? Klay Thompson, I think, went 10th or 11th.
Very true.
Draymond was a second round pick. So people can sit up there and get upset about the Warriors' success, but how many other teams had opportunities to go out there and get these guys? And they were like, you know what? You know what? Okay, this guy has a 40-inch vertical. This guy only has a 37-inch
We're
vertical.
gonna,
We're going to go out with the 40-inch vertical.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Very true. Very true. Very true. And now this is the results. Golden State 4 championships later. The Nuggets with a chance to defend their championship, and most of the key players were homegrown. They were from the draft and they were developed. And then you add pieces that fit that culture, and not only that fit that team's culture, but fit the identity of the city.